Do you know what these different logos stand for? Here's the first one on the screen. Do you know what that one is? That's the Nike tick. How about this one? Anybody know what this one is? Oh, it's on the bottom there, isn't it? Adidas. Everyone gets that one. That's a free one for you. How about this one? No, who's changed that? Right, that was the Arsenal logo, and Andy Blundell, remotely at home, has changed that to the Man United one, hasn't he? Right, you're fired. You're out of it now. I can't have that. That was meant to be the Arsenal one. Simon Barnes, in his book about animals, says the eagle was probably the world's first logo because it was Zeus's bird. For the Romans, Jupiter's bird. It was adopted as the symbol of the Roman army. So before Nike, before Adidas, before any sporting logo, we've always had the eagle. It's been there for us. Let's watch the power and awesomeness of eagles together. Eagles. The eagle has landed. I remember before lockdown we went to Warwick Castle together as a family, a fantastic castle that still has the power and majesty that you can picture yourself in there hundreds of years ago. One of the highlights was a bird show that they put on with all of these birds flying around. You can see in this next picture that there's an owl, and that was cool, and that's the only photo I got of one of the birds actually. And the reason was I didn't take many photos. I was so mesmerised. They had an eagle and it would fly from one of the handlers to the other one over us as a crowd, and it would soar just literally inches above our heads, and you would see children gasp and duck down because they didn't want this bird to pluck them as they did the piece of flesh that they would eat when they landed on the other bird handler's paw. It was absolutely incredible. Eagle isn't a precise term in ornithology, but those we call eagles roughly do the same thing. They fly extremely well and take large animals as prey. They need large areas to hunt in because they will not eat animals that have already been killed. They want something that is live and flesh. They enjoy the hunt. A female golden eagle is 3 foot 6 inches long and has a wingspan of 9 feet. That is absolutely incredible. That's 1.5 times me is their wingspan as they swoop through the air. Simon Barnes says we see cheekiness in mice, wry grins in dogs, sweet gentleness in cows, and ferocious majesty in eagles. Napoleon admired the Romans and took the eagle, which was their logo, as his personal seal. In 1782, the bald eagle was adopted on the Great Seal of the United States. Prussia adopted it as its symbol. And in Germany, under the Weimar Republic, 1919 to 1933, it was the eagle, and that became the secondary symbol under Hitler in Nazi Germany. One writer said, just about every human civilization has adopted eagles for symbolic and religious purposes. For eagles are found on every continent except Antarctica. Vishnu's chosen mount is Garuda, who has a man's body and the wings of an eagle. The Aztec god, sun god, that you can see written there, takes the form of an eagle. So does the Nordic storm god Thiassi. Eagles are mentioned in the Bible. There were 4 or 5 different species around in the Holy Land at the time of Jesus. And eagles are mentioned 30 times in the Bible, 27 times in the Old Testament, and only 3 times in the New Testament. And all of them are in the book of Revelation that looks to those end times when Jesus will return. They're used in a symbolic way in the Old Testament. They're literally a metaphor of the other huge nations swooping down on Israel and conquering them as they invade them and plunder them and take them captive. Or they're seen as an unclean animal that you don't eat. Whichever way you look at it, eagles are not positive in the minds of Jewish people. And yet throughout time, eagles have been caught between heaven and earth in the sky. That's why you will see them in so many churches in the shape of the lectern, on which the Bible rests for this very reason. The Bible is the word of God that has come from heaven to earth and kind of rests in this middle place where the story of the holy God is told by human beings that have their feet on the earth. So when any vicar, any person goes to the pulpit to read from the Bible, it's in the wings of an eagle. I wrote the second part of this talk earlier this week, and with everything that's gone on in the news, I just want to alter it slightly. So this part isn't particularly planned or thought through, but it comes from my heart, and I hope that God speaks to us through it. The eagle has landed was my father-in-law Derek Hill's one of his favourite films. It's based on a book, I think, by Jack Higgins, and I think it stars Clint Eastwood, and he used to love that film because it's about a small group of goodies who sneak into the enemy territory and then destroy the big guys. The eagle has landed is a secret affair. That's completely the opposite to how the Romans thought of themselves as the eagle has landed. They would oppress nations. They would give you enough so that you could live your life. So Jewish people will let you worship God so long as you do what you're told and you pay your taxes to us. If you don't, then we take all that stuff away. You can forget Passover, you can forget your other festivals. We will raise your synagogues to the ground like that. So it was an oppressive regime that they lived in. There is so much oppression in the world. I, at the moment, am reading the novel Shogun. I'm on page 320. I'm not even 25% of the way through the book, but I'm loving it. It's about feudal Japan in the 1600s. And the thing that keeps grabbing me is everyone is controlled by someone else. Everyone is oppressed by someone else, whether you're the lady that makes the tea for your lord, whether you are the lord that then you go to your daimyo, who is the leader of that area, or whether you're the daimyo that goes to the shogun, or whether you're the shogun that goes to the taiko. Everyone has someone who oppresses them. Even the taiko is oppressed by the Portuguese and the Spanish who control how much money he can have for the things he gives. Oppression, oppression, oppression. We watched yesterday afternoon Sister Act 2. I've seen it before. I love it. It's not got a very good rating on IMDb. I think it's wrong because it's a brilliant film. But again, oppression. A girl, a gifted black teenager who has the voice of an angel, and her mum says, "You won't sing. Your dad sang and it brought him nothing. He's dead now." The leaders of the school that decide financially it's better for them if they shut down the school and tell the nuns we're going to close it. Oppression, oppression, oppression. We watched a sitcom with our older two last night, a series that we've been watching together. We're in series 10, and one of the teachers is told, when you do this presentation about universities, you've got to say that they all have got to go to university. If you don't, then you won't get the assistant teacher's, head teacher's job at the school. Am I clear? Oppression, oppression, oppression. Whether it's in a novel written 40 odd years ago, whether it's in a film that was done in the 1990s, or whether it's in a sitcom that was filmed just last year, there is oppression everywhere. When I was at Bible College in Spurgeon's, I never felt oppression of any type because I was average. So I was never struggling academically that I'd be in trouble, but I was never one of the top bods that they would encourage to have and go for an MTH. I remember once saying to Arthur Rowe, my New Testament professor in the end of year 2, "Arthur, do you think I should study for an MTH, a master's degree?" And he just roared with laughter. "Neil, don't be so daft. You're brilliant at what you're doing anyway." He became my spiritual mentor for a few years. Fantastic guy. But there was one guy in our batch, that's our year group, and he was called Daniel Bondaryenko, and he came from the Ukraine. And if you look in Christian history books from Eastern Europe, you will see his dad's name come up, and his dad was known as the Billy Graham of the communist countries. And he was put in prison 3 times for 3 years each time for talking about Jesus Christ. Daniel and his mum came to this church about 20 years ago in an evening service, and she shared her story. And her story was that each time her husband came out of prison, he just felt compelled to go into the marketplace again and tell people that God loved them and that Jesus had died so that they would know that. And each time he was taken and put in prison. They had Bibles smuggled into their family home. Daniel was just a small child at this stage. And he didn't know what this was particularly about, but he was made very clear to him, you do not tell anyone about these Bibles. And they were smuggled in and then given out to the small Christian communities that were hidden around about them. He said they were often invaded by the police to check on them, to see if they had got any Bibles around them. They would wake them at 2 a.m. and just check. When it came to going to university, everyone had to bow to a statue. I think it was of Stalin. And Daniel refused to because of his Christian faith as a 17-year-old. I will not bow to him. And so he was not allowed to go to university. This gifted, intelligent human being. Oppression is everywhere. Oppression, whether we are working class, or we live in a palace, or we fled a palace to America. Oppression. Oppression when we walk home one evening at 9:30 in southeast London, and we've done all the safety checks that we should. We've spoken with our boyfriend for 14 minutes on the phone, so that people know that we are in contact with someone. We're bright, we're gifted, we're 33. Our life is ahead of us. We're making tentative plans maybe for the future. And today, Sarah's mum and dad and her family probably won't celebrate Mother's Day. Because one man decided that his evil desires outweighed the life of a daughter of God. I found it really hard walking the streets since this all unravelled in these last few days, of saying hello to women as you walk past, as they jog or they walk their dog along Woodland Walk or whatever it may be, or you pass them, go into the shops. Because I kind of feel ashamed for us as men. And I've looked inwardly, and I want all of us blokes to look inwardly, and to each of us to say, well, I'm not as bad as that guy. But for each of us to say, guys, let's up our game. Let's up our game, however good we are with treating women, girls equally. Let's up our game an extra few %, whatever that means for you. Not laughing at that sexist joke in the office. Fighting for that glass ceiling for women to be removed. Making sure that our daughters, mine who are 17 and 11, feel valued and safe. As a church, I promise you that we will do our utmost to value women equally. My biggest frustration in this lockdown and these services is that I've had to do most of the talking, and I can hear some of you saying amen. But I'm a bloke, I'm a white bloke, I'm almost 48, and usually as a church we have women involved in all of our services. And when the lockdown lifts, we will be bringing other ladies back in, because we love the sound of their intelligence, their spirituality, and I'm not lumping them all into one block. But men and women, we are equal. Men, let's up our game. Let's refuse to settle for as is. Because last week an eagle landed in Clapham and someone was robbed of their life. The eagle lands at about 6 a.m. in the passage we've just watched together. The eagle lands in the garb of the religious leaders. They are arrogant, evasive. He's done something evil, pig-headed, bloody-minded is the word I wrote down when I was thinking about them. We won't come in and give Jesus to Pilate, because that would then infect us for the Passover, and then we would be unclean for 7 days from being around a foreigner. So if you could just take him off our hands and deal with him. and they're cunning, because they could have only killed Jesus by stoning him, but they know full well that the Romans would kill him by crucifixion, by hanging him, as it were, on a tree. And they knew that in Deuteronomy, the Old Testament part of the Bible, anyone hung on a tree was cursed by God. They don't just want Jesus to be killed, they want him to be cursed by God. Let's hear this story clearly. This isn't a mother playing with her children, reading them Torah, the Old Testament, first 5 books of the Bible in the early morning. This isn't a father getting up and thinking, what does the day ahead look like for me as a Jewish man? These are the religious leaders. It's not the everyday people. The religious leaders want to get rid of this Jesus who the everyday people have been flocking towards. And so they bring him to Pilate at about 6 a.m. Pilate, who's been in this job for about 4 years now, in this backward area called Jerusalem and Judea. He hopes that this is a step up to a bigger job with more responsibility and more money. But the problem is he's already screwed up twice. He's already done 2 things that have annoyed the Jewish people and that have gone to the Roman emperor. And so he has been told, one more strike from you and you're out. This is before baseball was invented, but still they had the 3-strike rule. And so Pilate is on tenterhooks, and he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because he knows that Jesus hasn't done anything wrong. Even the way he talks about kingdom is clever, because he talks about kingdom not as a geographical, physical space, but as a title that you receive as a human being. He's making it really clear to the Romans, this Jesus doesn't want to take any of our land. He's more of a king in a figurehead kind of way. That's what they're saying about him. He's doing everything he can to get Jesus off the hook, until Jesus doesn't play ball and is evasive with his answers to Pilate's questions. Then Pilate gets annoyed and ends up saying, well, what is truth? Well, you don't find it in the Roman Empire, do you? With its oppression of people. But the one standing before him, according to John 14, verse 6, is the way, the truth, and the life. I wish I knew where I'd read this, but I read many years ago about some prisoners of war that were being executed by gunfire. And they were stood by a wall. It was early morning. It had been raining in the night, but it had stopped raining, but there were puddles on the floor, and all these men knew that they were going to be shot and killed. The soldiers were there ready with their rifles. And one of the men, as the sun broke out, one of the men, as he was about to be shot, took off his coat and went to lay it on the floor. And as he was about to lay it on the floor, he noticed that there was a puddle there. And so he put it in his other hand and he laid it down on a dry piece of ground. And I thought, why would you do that when you know you're going to be killed? It's pointless. They're just going to throw your coat away or burn it. And so for that last time, to make sure I won't get it dirty, is a strange action. And Pilate just can't get his head round this Jesus. His strange actions. Why have you not taken a throne? Why have you not got a bodyguard group around you? Why are you in this situation? Why won't you answer my questions? Jesus is one for the provocative in the face of the oppressive. Always. Always to challenge in a way that makes us stop and think. What can we do in the face of oppression that is provocative, that will make people stop and think? It might be things that make us feel slightly foolish. We took a lantern outside our front door last night at 9:30 and put it down in Hot Garden Road and stood there thinking, well, this isn't actually achieving anything, but we do want to honour the memory of Sarah, and we do want to say that women should have the freedom to not feel fearful when they just go outside. So what can I do this week in the face of oppression that is provocative, that makes people stop and think?